Yemen's cholera epidemic is now the largest and fastest spreading outbreak in modern history. 2,000 people have already died from the disease. By the end of this year, more than 1 million cases are expected. 600,000 of them will be children. That's a higher count than recorded in Haiti.
The reason why cholera spread in Yemen is because of the ongoing war, which began in 2015. It's led to the deterioration of Yemen's institutions, including the medical and sewage systems.
Yemen's conflict has raged on for 2.5 years. Fighting between Saudi-backed forces loyal to ousted President Mansour Hadi and Iran-sponsored Houthi rebels has killed at least 10,000 people. And both sides blame each other for mass civilian suffering.
In Yemen, there are no winners on the battlefield, and the Yemeni people remain the biggest losers, who are paying the highest price for this war. The parties have to commit to end all hostilities and start discussions for a comprehensive peace agreement.
Pressure is piling on the warring sides to resume a peace agreement that fell apart last year. Kuwait had hosted the talks at the time and says it's ready to do it again. But skepticism is rife. A first step would see the rivals agree on a permanent ceasefire, but the Saudi-led coalition is worried that would cement a permanent split between Yemen's north and south. To complicate the negotiations, Yemen's rebels are increasingly divided between Shia Houthis and supporters of President Saleh. The sheer number of players at the table may also make peace talks difficult. But with levels of cholera and famine reaching new highs, can all sides be pushed to change course? Sandra Gatman, The Newsmakers.
Let's go to our panel now. Gerald Firestein joins me from Washington, D.C. He's a former U.S. ambassador to Yemen under Barack Obama. In Gothenburg, Sweden, we have Afrah Nasser. She's the founder and editor-in-chief of the online magazine, The Sana'a Review. And with me here in studio is Kaukab Athaybani. She was a communications specialist at the UN Development Program. I thank you all for joining us. It's a disgraceful situation when you look at the cholera epidemic. I mean, the fact that there possibly will be 1 million cases by the end of the year. It's a disgrace to everybody involved in this conflict. I think everybody agrees that this is a man-made crisis, because without the war, you wouldn't have cholera. But which man? Which man's responsible for this? Which man or which men? Kaukab, let me begin with you. Who do you think is fundamentally to blame for cholera and for the current situation in Yemen?
2011, we started like a revolution because we wanted a better state. Because, as you know, Yemen has been like an already poor country and suffers from poor infrastructure and poor services. I would blame the international community for their meddling in the Yemen's situation, because in 2011 we were about to have, like, we were trying to lay the foundation for a civil state, for the state we want to do. But unfortunately, in the GCC brokered initiative, they provide immunity to the former president and the former regime, which has put our, like, the transitional period in risk. And as you know, that the health situation and the livelihoods of people are related to the political situation and the stability of the country. So I would say, for me, I think without the misunderstanding of the international community to the situation of Yemen, we would have better, you know, country now.
Afrah Nasser, who's to blame for the current situation in Yemen?
I think all warring parties are to blame. Even before the war began, Yemen has always been ranked as the poorest Arab country for many decades, and one of the poorest countries in the world. So with the ongoing conflict, I think it's like the second conflict, because the first war was the Houthi-led, rebellion or Houthi-led coup against the legitimate government of President Hadi, and then the involvement or the intervention of the Saudi-led coalition came as an extension to the violence. And of course, all these consecutive conflicts have really drained out the country and drained out the already impoverished country in the region. So I think the main question should be really not who is responsible of the cholera, because the disaster is unfolding in front of the world's watch, and the question should be how to stop it.
Okay.
And that's
Yep. Ambassador Gerald Firestein, when we look at the numbers, the more than 10,000 dead, the fact that 19.3 million Yemenis don't have access to clean water and sanitation, the cholera numbers are absolutely mind-blowing. Might all of that embarrass the international community enough to finally work harder towards a political resolution?
Well, I don't think that there's been any lack of effort on the part of the international community to encourage the Yemeni parties to the conflict to find a solution. The issue is that up until now, the parties really haven't been willing to sit down and negotiate. I agree with your last commentator that it's unproductive to try to find the person or persons who are responsible for this. Everybody shares responsibility. There are ideas on the table, there are efforts underway, not only to negotiate a political way forward to resolve the conflict, but also in the interim, at least to have the parties cooperate so that humanitarian relief can get in, food, medicine, other necessary items can get in to try to help the Yemeni people address some of these dire issues that they're confronting.
Yes, Mr. Ambassador, we're seeing that Hodeidah has been surrounded. So the argument is they don't want weapons to come in, and that's fine, but they also seem to be blocking food, medicine, and so on, as you mentioned. That's the Saudi-led coalition. That's the blockade that contributes to the exacerbation of the humanitarian crisis. Don't you think, Mr. Ambassador, that the United States and the United Kingdom share some of this blame because they've essentially given the Saudi-led coalition a blank check?
Well, one, the U.S. and the U.K. haven't given the Saudi-led coalition a blank check. Two, it's arguable about whether or not it's really the coalition that's blocking the delivery of supplies. We just had Dr. Rabia from the King Salman Center here in the U.S. A couple of weeks ago. He pledged that there would be no ship carrying food that would be delayed for more than 48 hours, calling on Hodeidah. There is equally a problem with delivery inside of the country that's not related to the Saudi-led coalition. The Houthis have laid siege to Taiz for the entire duration of this conflict and are trying to starve that city. So again, I don't think it's productive to say that this party or that party is responsible. Certainly. Everybody shares responsibility.
Certainly, Mr. Ambassador, if you'd allow me to interrupt you, and I apologize for that. So we had, for example, as you said, the Houthis laid siege to Taiz, and that's all well and good. It's documented, and that's a crime by the Houthis. A Reuters investigation showing the Kota Nazar, a Singaporean ship with 636 containers of steel, paper, medicine, and other goods, set sail to Hodeidah, blocked by a Saudi warship blocking Yemen's ports. So if I give you that example, would you consider that to be a war crime by the Saudi-led coalition?
I have no idea what the details of that specific incident are without knowing more about it, why that particular ship was blocked. I couldn't really judge one way or the other.
Kaukaba Thaibani, who's more to blame, if I adjust my question to you?
As Afrah said, we need to stop this from going on. But I think, as I said earlier, that I think the approaches of the international community to address this issue has to be changed. They have not to talk to the Houthi and Saleh forces in order to settle this, issue. Unfortunately, this has happened in the GCC brokered initiative, and then it turns out to be like a failure. And then the peace and partnership peace agreement, and then it turns into another failure. So the international community has to revisit their approaches to Yemen. And unfortunately, this has become worse by the Saudis, where their intervention in Yemen has made the situation worse. And to be honest, like the Houthi and Saleh control over Yemen now is because of the Saudi support from the beginning. So if we want to blame, we need also to ask the international community to change their approaches to Yemen. Their most fair is what we understand is they're afraid from the expansion of Al-Qaeda over Yemen, but they're not afraid.
But they're also afraid of an expansion of Iranian influence via the Houthis.
Yeah, but this is the fear of the Saudis more than,
right.
Yeah, but this is not, if you want to address a problem, you need to address its root. And the international community and the diplomacy has been carried out has proven to be not taken the right approach. First, it fails, and there are many initiatives and agreements, and this has made the people lost their faith in their approaches. People, if they want to sign any agreement, they know that there is no enough pressure from the international community to pass it over. And also, like, the international community cares more about tourism, and Saudi cares more about Iranian expansion, and there is no care about the ultimate goal of the Yemeni people, that they have a real state that protect their rights and also lay the foundation for a better infrastructure in the future. And the cholera is a normal result of what is going on.
Yeah, symptomatic of what's going on.
Exactly.
Afra Nasser, if the Saudi-led coalition, might there be a silver lining here? If the Saudi-led coalition can go so far as to allow a Russian medical team into Sana'a to treat Ali Abdullah Saleh, as has been reported, might that be a sign that they're willing to compromise a bit more than they were willing to in the past? Might that be a little glimmer of hope?
You have to understand also, like, this is the second time that the Saudis intervene to, save the health of Ali Abdullah Saleh, the former president. And even till today, his son is in custody, or his residency is in the United Arab Emirates. And that gives you an idea about how strange and ironic is this war, when they have, some of the main faces leading in alliance with the Houthis, leading civil war in the country, and they're still not finding way to have communication. But I think the issue with Yemen war, even with the cholera, is just a symptom of a larger problem. And it's great that it's highlighting, talking about the politic aspect of the conflict. But I think the root of the problem is that, when states intervene in civil wars, that usually prolongs the war and make the already complicated civil war more complicated, and that's what we're seeing today. So talking about the cholera and blocking food and the humanitarian crisis, really, in my opinion, it is narrowing down the conflict in Yemen from the humanitarian aspect, and not really going into deep of the politics and how to find ways to resolve the conflict.
Certainly. It wasn't hit by a natural disaster. These are all symptomatic of a terrible political situation. You mentioned ironies and twists. I'm interested to hear from you, Ambassador Firestein, on the ironies and twists regarding Ali Abdullah Saleh. You would have met the man, you would have dealt with him directly during your time as ambassador. At that time, he was a U.S. ally. Now he is not, and he's the mastermind behind the rise of the Houthis. Tell me about the man. Tell me about the enigma that is Ali Abdullah Saleh. And did he pull a fast one over you, the United States?
Well, I think that what happened is, obviously, as some of your guests have already pointed out, certainly we were very concerned about the rise of violent extremism in Yemen. We did work to cooperate with Ali Abdullah Saleh in an effort to contain that, to keep it not only from becoming a threat to the Yemeni people themselves, but also in the region and globally. And so we did have a relationship with Saleh, but But the fact of the matter is that when young people in Yemen took to the streets to protest against the government, my government, as well as our partners and allies around the world, worked with the parties in Yemen to try to gain a peaceful transition from Ali Abdullah Saleh to a successor government. And we worked very hard to try to have an opportunity for the Yemeni people to come together and address their political and economic and social issues in a peaceful way. Unfortunately, Ali Abdullah Saleh was one of the principal actors in undermining the political transition and preventing the kind of peaceful political process that we all hope to achieve, and that the GCC initiative provided a framework and an opportunity to achieve. So the reality is that Ali Abdullah Saleh, unfortunately, refused to take advantage of the opportunities that he was given to live peacefully. The only one of the Arab leaders affected by the Arab Spring who was given an opportunity to live at peace in his own country. Rather than that, he worked very hard to undermine the transition, including this alliance that he's forged with the Houthis.
Yeah, that was really great to get your insights there. Kaukab, let me end with you because we're running out of time. Is there anything to be optimistic about?
I think in Yemen after 2011, the international community has a prototype and the people have a prototype about the Arab country. But 2011 has shown that Yemenis are not like what they are portrayed. Poor country, they have less understanding of democracy. We show that we want democracy and we are working hard to it. Maybe what you see, the extremism and the problem around is showing that Yemen is falling apart, but I'm sure that there is a new emerging power is coming out, and I'm sure in the near future, this power will emerge and will be ready when the country is going through a stabilization period.
Well, we hope so, and we wish the people of Yemen all the best. Kaukab Thaibani, Afrah Nasser, and Ambassador Gerald Firestein, I thank you all for sharing your thoughts with us here on the Newsmakers.